Gun rights in America have been a hot topic of political debate for decades. The Bill of Rights contains the Second Amendment, forming the basis for legal protections of the right to keep and bear arms. But in light of shootings in public places, some critics believe the Second Amendment is outdated with modern weapons technology. They argue that modern guns are more powerful and dangerous than anything known in the age of muskets. Gun rights advocates say the need for defense is the same as it was in the 18th century. The debate is not likely to go away anytime soon. The first anniversary of the Newtown school shooting, December 14th, is bringing the gun control debate to water cools and legislatures around the nation. Alan Gottlieb is one of the world's leading advocates for gun rights. He's the author of 19 books and has been the subject of stories on the Huffington Post, CNN, and other outlets. He's the chairman of the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms and the founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. On December 15th, the committee will hold the first Guns Save Lives Day, and the day will be sponsored by several pro-gun rights groups from around the nation. Supporters will express their solidarity through social media and personal stories. Gottlieb is our guest on the show today. He's here to talk to us about the Second Amendment and what it means in our world today. We'll also discuss the Gun Saves Lives Day and the Second Amendment Foundation. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Good to be with you.
Alan, let's talk about the Second Amendment. What is the purpose? What was the founders' intent for the Second Amendment?
Well, the founders' intent of the Second Amendment was to make sure that the people basically had the ultimate check and balance on their government or other foreign countries coming in and invading our country, as well as the individual right for self-defense. And, of course, it's been codified more recently by the U.S. Supreme Court in two Supreme Court decisions, the Heller case that knocked out the Washington, D.C. handgun ban, and the McDonald case that knocked out the Chicago handgun ban, and also incorporated the Second Amendment through the 14th Amendment, making it applicable to all 50 states. And in those two rulings, the United States Supreme Court basically said that the Second Amendment is an individual right, and it really pertains to the right of self-defense.
So there are people that do contend, though, that it's for the militia only. Is that the case, or the Supreme Court ruled against that?
Well, yes, they did, but also if you wanted to take that argument, I mean, who are the militia? The Founding Fathers determined the militia and they defined it as the people as a whole. So you and I and your listeners, your viewers, are the militia. And Congress over the years has passed the Uniform Militia Act and updated it a number of times. And there's what class of militia known as the unorganized militia, which is the people as a whole. So if the other side wanted to use that as an argument, they still fall on their face.
Now, what about the definition of the well-regulated militia? What are the two? What's the difference between the unorganized and the well-regulated?
Well, the unorganized is a class of militia. The well-regulated is the preamble to the Second Amendment that's in it. And by well-regulated, at the time it was written, the word regulated meant well-trained. So it meant basically you had your rifle and your pistol, and you were trained to use them, so in the time of emergency, you could pick them up and be a good marksman. And that's what they meant by regulated. It was trained.
Now, flash forward to the debate today. Constitutional protections of gun rights are claimed to be outdated by many critics. Where do they find the basis in that argument?
Well, I think those are the kind of people who think we have a living, breathing Constitution that changes at their own whims. I mean, it's not outdated, and if they think it's outdated, the way to do it is not to ignore it. The way to do it is to take it to the people and try to repeal it. And of course, if they tried that, they would lose, so they just want to ignore it, and that's how they call it outdated, so you don't have to pay attention to it. I mean, you don't not pay attention to constitutional protections.
So you're saying that people want to just simply repeal the Second Amendment? I mean, it's a right that is inherent by our Creator, cannot be repealed.
Well, you can't. You're right that you can't repeal something given to you by your Creator, but you don't have to have it protected in statute, code, or the Constitution. And so, if they wanted to get rid of it, if they were being intellectually honest about it, rather than ignoring it or trying to pretend it doesn't exist, they'd try to repeal it. That was tried once in Congress, and it never even got out of committee.
Now, are there limits which should be placed on gun ownership, perhaps keeping them from violent convicted criminals? Or should it be anyone, anytime, any weapon?
Well, both the Supreme Court decisions basically say that the government has, an obligation to protect society, and that there are classes of people that could be prohibited. And in fact, they spell out the fact that, violent criminals, mental incompetence, adjudicated mentally ill, people shouldn't be able to own a firearm, and laws could be passed, stopping them from being able to possess them. So yeah, there are limitations. I guess no right is totally unlimited, but the thing is, when you have a enumerated right in the Bill of Rights, the idea is to give it as much liberal interpretation as you can and make it apply to as many people as you can.
Alan, is there any correlation between gun laws and violence?
That's a really good question, because quite frankly, it does not appear to be that there is any correlation whatsoever. A lot of university studies that have been around show that there's no correlation. And if you just look at the laws, like, say, in New York City or Chicago, Washington, D.C., that are extremely strict for gun ownership, that's where you have your highest crime rates. I mean, Chicago is like the murder capital of the world. Washington, D.C. has an outrageous crime rate, and those are where most of the gun laws are. So one can actually take a look and say the gun laws might, in fact, make crime go up, not down, because it retards people having the right or means to defend themselves and allows the criminals to, quote-unquote, victimize people twice, so to speak, once by committing the crime and once by having a law that doesn't let you defend yourself.
Now, who's behind the drive to ban guns in the hands of average American citizens?
A number of politicians and, unfortunately, some people in the media as well. Barack Obama, as an example, as president, has called for banning semi-automatic firearms and magazines that hold more than 10 or 15 rounds. When he was a state senator, he supported a ban on all handguns when he was a senator in Illinois. And you got people like Michael Bloomberg, mayor of New York City, that spends millions of dollars a year trying to disarm law-abiding citizens. You got billionaires like George Soros, who spends, he gave one group $1 million alone to attack gun rights. So there's a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence pushing against people's right to keep and bear arms.
Alan, we're up against a break, and when we come back, I want to discuss the Guns Save Lives Day, but we do need to take this break. Stay tuned for more. We're talking with Alan Gottlieb right here on WHDT World News.